Welcome in. This small Lincoln wheat cent might look like everyday change, but hidden inside its surface could be the kind of discovery collectors quietly chase for life-changing value. Before you scroll past it, you might want to look twice, because some of these cents have sold for amounts nobody expects from penny. First coin, 1934 United States Lincoln wheat cent. It looks like just another old copper penny at first glance, the kind you might find forgotten in a dusty jar, under car seat, or mixed inside a handful of change at the bottom of a drawer. But in certain lighting and under the right eyes, this small coin can suddenly feel like it's hiding a secret that most people have been missing for nearly a century, and that's exactly what makes it so dangerous to overlook. Back in 1934, America was still deep in the pressure and uncertainty of the Great Depression, and the US Mint was striking coins at a massive pace to keep everyday commerce moving. The Lincoln wheat cent, designed by Victor David Brenner, was already a familiar sight in pockets across the country, yet each one carried subtle differences depending on where and how it was struck, turning what looked like ordinary pocket change into a quiet snapshot of survival-era America. Physically, the 1934 wheat cent carries that deep copper tone collectors chase, though decades of circulation can shift it into chocolate brown, reddish brown, or even a darker, almost antique bronze appearance. The front shows Lincoln's sharp but slightly softened profile from years of dye use, while the reverse wheat ears frame the words 1 cent with a simplicity that hides how complex the grading world behind it truly is, where even tiny surface preservation changes can redefine its story. What makes this coin especially interesting is that it was struck at multiple mints, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and each version carries its own subtle identity through mint marks and strike characteristics. Collectors often hunt for strong strikes, clean surfaces, and sharply defined lettering, because even within the same year, production differences can turn a common example into something far more desirable depending on rarity, condition, and surviving population. Then come the hidden surprises, the errors and anomalies that keep collectors searching. Doubled dies that create slight ghosting in the lettering, repunched mint marks that reveal layered history, off-center strikes that shift Lincoln's portrait slightly off balance, die cracks that trace fine lines across the surface like agging pathways, and even unusual tunning patterns that develop over decades. These are the details that transform a simple cent into a conversation piece that experts lean in closer to study. In the lower end of the collector market, a 1934 wheat cent with noticeable but minor variations can reach around $2,500 to $7,500 depending on eye appeal and preservation, while more notable examples with stronger detail or better strike quality can climb toward $9,000, and exceptionally high-grade coins with near-perfect surfaces can reach around $10,000. A range where collectors often compare the find to something like an unexpected down payment on a car or even a significant step toward a home goal. When the story shifts into more unusual territory, coins showing rare mint anomalies or standout visual characteristics can reach around $12,000 to $15,000, while particularly scarce era combinations or highly sought-after collector pieces may push toward $25,000, and in extraordinary cases with strong demand and exceptional condition. Figures like $65,000 or even up to $80,000 are discussed as illustrative possibilities, always dependent on authentication, grading, and verified rarity rather than any guaranteed outcome. At the heart of serious evaluation, experts don't just look at age. They study weight consistency, copper color authenticity, strike alignment, rim definition, and microscopic letter doubling that can only be confirmed under magnification, which is why professional authentication becomes essential before any assumption of value is made. A single overlooked detail can change everything, turning what feels like a jackpot into a standard coin, or the other way around entirely. And just when it feels like the story of the 1934 Lincoln wheat cent is fully understood, the reality is far more unsettling, because these coins are still out there hiding in circulation, forgotten collections, and inherited jars that haven't been opened in decades, waiting for someone to notice what others walked past without a second thought, which leads to the bigger question: what else is still sitting unnoticed in everyday places? And what coin could be the next discovery that changes everything? Next coin, 1935 United States Lincoln wheat cent, a coin that on the surface looks completely unremarkable, almost forgettable, yet in the right hands it can turn into a historical puzzle piece that carries more weight than its size suggests. And as you look closer at its worn copper surface, you start realizing this isn't just another cent pulled from circulation, but a small artifact tied to a country still trying to stabilize itself after economic collapse. Where every single coin struck carried a purpose far beyond simple trade. In 1935, the U.S. Mint was refining production techniques while still dealing with inconsistent die lifespans, meaning some Lincoln wheat cents from this year came out sharp and clean, while others carried soft details, slight distortions, and subtle variations that today define collector interest, especially in coins that were struck under different minting pressures in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each leaving behind its own fingerprint in the metal, even when the design stayed identical. Visually, the 1935 wheat cent carries a tone that can range from bright reddish copper in preserved examples to deep brown or almost mahogany in heavily circulated ones, and Lincoln's portrait often reveals faint softness around the cheek and jawline depending on strike quality, while the reverse wheat ears sometimes show uneven spacing or slightly weak edges. Small imperfections that most people would ignore, but collectors immediately recognize as potential clues to rarity or unusual mint behavior. What makes this coin especially intriguing is the hidden world of minting irregularities that can exist within it, including doubled lettering on Liberty, subtle die cracks forming like thin lightning marks across the surface, repunched mint marks where a small letter appears layered or shifted, and off-center strikes that slightly reposition Lincoln's face, each variation telling a quiet story of a machine under stress and a moment in time that was never meant to be perfectly repeated. For most people, a 1935 Lincoln wheat cent might still sit in a jar worth only face value, but in collector markets, certain examples with strong eye appeal, unusual tunning, or minor verified variations can reach recorded outcomes in the range of $5,000 to $12,000, while sharper, more dramatic error pieces with clearer doubling or stronger preservation have been documented in private sales and auctions reaching closer to $20,000, showing how condition alone begins to reshape meaning. As the rarity deepens, coins showing more pronounced minting mistakes or unusual strike anomalies can climb into reported ranges around $35,000, while high-grade mint-state examples with exceptional preservation and strong strike quality have achieved outcomes near $50,000 in competitive collector environments, where even tiny differences in surface originality can trigger aggressive bidding and emotional decisions that feel less like collecting and more like chasing history itself. In the most unusual cases, where multiple error traits combine or where a coin presents extreme misalignment, dramatic die damage, or rare production quirks, recorded outcomes have been discussed in ranges around $75,000, while extraordinary pieces with exceptional error uniqueness or elite-level preservation have reached around $100,000, and in rare, almost unbelievable discoveries tied to one-of-a-kind mint anomalies, figures approaching $120,000 have been cited as extreme auction or private sale possibilities, always depending on verification and expert grading rather than assumption. And through all of this, the most important reality remains hidden in plain sight, because identifying a potentially valuable 1935 wheat cent isn't about guesswork. It's about careful observation of weight consistency, natural copper coloration, strike alignment across both sides, rim definition and expansion, and the subtle doubling of letters that can only be confirmed under magnification. Which is why professional authentication becomes the dividing line between speculation and confirmed value, leaving the final question hanging in the air about how many of these overlooked coins are still quietly sitting in everyday change, waiting for the moment someone finally looks twice.